Good morning, everybody. Yesterday I asked how many people were new, and there were a lot of hands that came up. So I hope that everyone was new to RTSS enjoyed their first round of boardrooms, because it's a long day. And based on how many people were at the casino event and how many people were out by the bar, it looks like everyone had a great day yesterday. And I appreciate you getting up early this morning to still make it in here. So first of all, I just want to thank you guys, everyone around. You got through the first day. And just remember, today is also the last day, so first and last, back to back. It makes it pretty quick. I'm a huge fan of RTSS, so I'm going to take a moment while we're here, because this is breakfast, so your expectations should be pretty low of how this presentation goes. This is just to wake you up, get you a little excited to go sit in a room for the rest of the day. And I'm a big fan of this format because we get to talk to each other. And even after the boardrooms, keep in mind that we have the showroom floor. We have a single bar that we can go to, so we get to hang out, we get to have conversation. So everyone may have different expectations of why they came here, but remember that the vendors, the other industry experts that are here in the room, we can all talk to each other, and I encourage you to strike up that conversation. In my experience, business has been quite the roller coaster. Life is separate, let's not talk about that, just in business. You have the climb when you start, and in business, the climb can be hard. Then you have the moments, and you've all experienced it, because I already have in my short time in business, which is 15 years, but some of you have been doing it, as I've learned, a lot longer, that you can accelerate, that when you get downstream and you are hitting stride and you know exactly your plan, your target audience, you've worked your product solution, you're just scaling, you're just growing, and that moment feels good. And I'm sure most of you have experienced that time, because I have. And then there's times where it's going downhill, things that you didn't expect, things you did not see coming, and you have to fix those. And then you have to decide, are you going to climb back up? Most of us have. You're in this room because you have. In addition to that, once you're coasting, you can decide, do you want to scale it again? Do you want to level up? And in that, you're climbing again, and it becomes challenging. What I have learned in the last 2 years, as Versi has decided to climb, is that there are two things that would have helped me if I learned them earlier, and I'm going to share them now. Number one is, it's not number one, but I didn't want to have a lifestyle business anymore. And I had a lifestyle business for a long time, and there's nothing wrong with a lifestyle business. But I decided I wanted to build something. And in order to do that, I could not do it without an operating system in the business. And I could not do that without core values. And I will be the first to say the first 13 years I operated without those. And a lot of businesses can succeed without them. But if you have not implemented an operating system and you have not implemented core values in your business, then you need to. And there are really easy ways to do it. There's a system called EOS, Entrepreneur Operating System, and there's one called System and Soul. And there are individuals who become certified in those systems, and for relatively an inexpensive price, sometimes as low as $30,000 a year, packages up to $50,000. But the impact that they make, because they'll pull you outside of your business, and they will walk you through that entire system, helping you set your goals, helping you set your core values, and teach you the cadence that EOS and System and Soul have built for thousands and thousands of businesses. That's my business plug this morning for you. Take that advice, and if you'd like to meet someone, I have worked with both implementers. I'm happy to introduce you to the individual that we used, and maybe they have other connections if they're not available. So let's talk about vision to victory. And I'm going to just tell you a story this morning, because you've heard a lot of pitches, you've heard a lot of information. So today is going to be about a story, and I hope you take away from it, and I'll hopefully assure that you do by the end of this story. The story today is about a man, and you're going to understand why I kind of slurred there, because the name of the guy is funny. A man named Dick, okay? And his story of vision to victory. What I've learned is growing up, and you all learn the same, you have a vision of what your life is going to be, you have a dream. And you daydream about it often when you're young. And then you learn quickly that you cannot plan your life. And it doesn't work out Even if for moments it does work out as you saw it, ultimately it doesn't. So he was in his mid-20s, married with a child, had his dream job, bought a home, was a homeowner. What more could you ask for? A wife, a child, a roof over your head, and your dream job of being a fireman, graduating from a welder to someone helping others. And he sought to be a fireman, and this is a picture of him. And he said, because at some point in everyone's life, they need help. Why not be someone who can be there to give that help? And we've all experienced it, and you'd be lying to yourself if you didn't, because you wouldn't be sitting where you are today if someone didn't help you. Even if it's someone choosing to do business with you over your competitor, they still chose you, and Inform helped you grow your business. But life has other plans. It always happens. Heading to a call one day, one of thousands of calls. Firemen never know what they're going to get into, just like in business. We can get surprised. Another man from another unit and he went into a building. And one of the things that you're supposed to do is cut power to the building. And the other man stood and looked at him, another fireman, and said, "Hot, hot," and passed out, fell to the floor. Full fire gear, raging fire inside of a home. Well, when he said hot, he stood on an electrical wire and got electrocuted and passed out. So he had to pull him out of the building, put him on his shoulders, walked him out the front door, tripped going down the concrete steps. With the weight of all the gear and the man on top of him, knees hit every single one. And that was the beginning of his end of his career and his dream as a fireman. Could no longer sit and give CPR. He was able to work a few more years because none of us give up easy. And he always took the head position when they did the test to make sure that every fireman could perform every work duty. But it wasn't until one inspector and that one person comes along in your life who can be a thorn and said, "I need you to move over here and give CPR." But there was absolutely no way he could sit up on his knees and give the compression that required. And that was the end of that dream. Simultaneously to that, and again, this is about the vision you set in life, but how you can still be victorious. That son, at 23 months, was diagnosed with leukemia in the 80s. In the 80s, for those of you who have probably experienced this yourself, someone you care about, it was a death sentence in the 80s. The death rate was incredibly high, and everything was experimental at the time. It's easy to give up at that point. Not sure your financial future, not sure your home life. And this man took the right path in a lot of ways. He deeded the house back to the bank. Could you imagine in COVID or times now when people are struggling to pay their bills where they say, "You know what, I can't do this, so take it back. I'm going to avoid bankruptcy. I'm going to avoid foreclosure. Take my deed. I'm not sure where we're going to live, but I can't commit to what I signed up for." With those challenges, he chose to be positive, despite having to go to hospital after hospital. And today's story is not about the boy with leukemia, but he stood in the hospital watching hundreds of cars go by in Seattle at Fred Hutchinson's. And he said, it'd be nice to live that life again. Because right now, a lot of us who don't have hardship are still dreaming of what we want to do, what we want to accomplish. So remember that there are people standing in the hospital today watching everyone live their lives, but when you're facing that type of uncertainty, your life is on pause. Your dreams are on pause, and you are in survival mode. You're taking every job that you can do just to provide. So we are blessed in this room to even be here today, that we can even focus and create the time to be here. So I want to remind you guys that life is good right now, even if you're facing some challenges, because it's not on pause. Well, he continued to fight the battle, and he was a dreamer despite whatever adversity came. And he saw a course at a community college about how to build log homes. And because he started working a lot of side jobs, he learned construction. And that was good to him outside of fireman. Despite not being able to sit on his knees, he was still very capable. So he built a log home in the 90s. It was kind of rare to do that. Dropped all the trees himself, had skiving parties, 2 of them. Would you go to sit there and hand skive a tree? Would you do it for a drink or a beer? Well, only one person showed up to both parties. But they got it done. Built the home. And by this point, he had 3 children, still battling leukemia with the first. Just so you understand, battling leukemia with the first, it was 3 rounds of chemotherapy, 3 rounds of relapses, full body radiation. It was their life, but you still have to move on and adjust. While having a home, you had to find the next opportunity. And at that son's baseball game, he found another man who had a dream that he attached to, because sometimes our dreams are not our own. We have them when we're young, but we adjust. And you probably didn't expect yourself to be in POS or payments. I know I certainly didn't. So he joined a hunting television program, became a host of the show, became a producer of the show, became the editor of the show. And he hunted all over the world. It's a pretty cool story because this was in the 90s. It was on for 20 years, and it was everything. He found a passion. I love what I do. I don't love payments and POS. I love the people I do it with. He didn't love people, so he traveled the world and hunted and found a way to get paid to do it. Well, after 20 years having a great partnership, that partner decided to retire and sell the business. They found a buyer, and this buyer was willing to pay $20 million for the business they built. It's a really good number. They'd flown to New York. They'd already drank the old fashions. The deal was done. They were into the attorney phase. Well, in 2001, the World Trade Centers went down. The business buying his was in the World Trade Center. The majority of the entire staff did not survive. In a matter of months, it wasn't even that much, it was weeks. You go from a high of, I've created this business, I'm now exiting it, I'm going to have all the money I'm ever going to need, to the world is mourning, and so is your dream of financial security and retirement. You have to rebuild. Do you stop there? No, he didn't. He decided to move forward and find a new buyer for his partner. And they sold to a rich guy who wanted to be on TV, who on day one walked in after the transaction and said, we're not going to take any wages, and we're going to reinvest to build this business. So for 2 years, he worked for free, not a dollar out of the business, because the guy with millions said, we're going to reinvest it all, but didn't look at the life of his partner. Well, after those 2 years, he filed for separation. Call it separation, but it's dissolution of the business. Because it was the only thing he could do is to just let it die. 20 years of work, going from $20 million to nothing because of a bad partnership. They went into a lawsuit for 5 years, and he did win $40,000. But it's the worst thing in the world when the business you built is suing you with the funds that the business makes. Not the funds of the partner, but the funds of the business suing you individually, and you individually defending it. I'm telling this because from vision to victory, when you are facing adversity, which you will face, and you're going to have those highs, you have to understand your core of how you move forward and why you move forward. Otherwise, you can give up, and people give up too early. So he lost that business, had to move on. In those 2 years, rather than complaining about no income, you want to be a team player. Just like at all this inflation we're experiencing, how many of your team members have less now, even if you gave them a raise? So he didn't complain. He started a nursery, bought some rentals, survived on that. Not only has he at this point taught himself how to edit, which, by the way, he has 13 Telly Awards, which is like winning an Oscar for editing, so got really good at it. Decided, I'm going to grow trees and learn that entire process from scratch. Got up to 11 acres of trees and decided to teach his family lessons through this. And I'm going to pause and talk about the business lessons, because it's not just what you're doing, it's about the influence that you all have on everyone else. So he decided to offer his sons the opportunity to invest. How many people in here have children, just so I understand? Okay, then it's worth telling. What lessons are you teaching your children? Not just educating them and talking to them, but showing them and letting them experience it. So he said to his 3 children, I'm going to buy 500 trees. You're going to do all the work. We're going to take all the cogs out, and we're going to split the profit 50-50. You 3 get a third, I get half, because money has rights. Okay. They execute on it. And in 5 years, the kids do all the planting, all the potting, all the trimming, all the digging, because he made them dig, not hiring someone else to dig and sell the plant, but dig it and burlap it. The profit per child was $3,000. They loved it. So what he did next is he said, do you want to reinvest it? Or do you want to go buy something? But if you reinvest it, you have enough money to buy 500 trees on your own. And if you do the math on that profit, that's about $18,000 in profit. So all boys reinvest at his guidance. Well, really at their choice. They do all the work. But 5 years into those trees, it was 2008. If you guys remember 2008, there was a crash. Market crash, really. And in the nursery, ornamentals, they weren't really selling. So the reinvestment led to less money than if you'd taken it from the beginning. And we could decide if you want to sell your services for less or if you want to maintain your price. And in this case, trees were going for about $10. They were worth $110.
Okay. So you barely had enough. You looked at that as about $5,000 just to cover the initial investment, but you would flood the market, you would delay the return of a fair price. And the lease had expired at this point. So the lesson that he was able to show his children is, what do you do? Well, he dug them all up and he burned them. Said, rather than flood the market and prolong the recovery, it's just give it another adversity, because you lost everything. And in his case, he lost a lot more than boys. When I speak to vision to victory, I didn't get into the nitty-gritty of these details because it's just breakfast. You guys have a long day in front of you. But you do have the choice of how you respond to those adversities and how you approach it, whether you want to win and how that you went through it. This is him. Built a cabin, 600 acres, middle of nowhere, driving his 19 70 Shelby G2500. Whatever you think you have gone through as a challenge, the truth is someone has gone through something worse. And there are millions of people that dream of the life we all have here. The flexibility, entrepreneurship, leadership, just the mental capacity that you have
To sit in this room to build the business you did is something millions of other people dream of. I'm standing up here today not to teach you guys about business, but to remind you that you have a blessed life. That if you go home from here, how can you influence others? Because as an influencer, which all of you are, you can give others hope and you can give them a good path because you're on one. I don't know all of these stories because I read them or even interviewed them. The cool thing is this is my dad. And I lived this story watching him overcome challenge after challenge after challenge. And he has told me, enjoy the money while you have it. Because credit card processing was residual income, service provider. It's nice. But I'll remind you, it goes away. And 2020 was an example of that. And I thought the entire time, man, I'm still in a better spot than going from a 20 million sale to no sale. And he recovered from that over and over and over again. And I am more nervous to stand here in front of you guys, and I may not look like it, but I'm super nervous here. Really, I am. Because I want to share my brother Ryan's story. And I hope to come back to this stage next year and deliver that message. But I have not figured out how to deliver it because it is so powerful, and I guarantee you would all be in tears. And we didn't want to do that at breakfast. What we wanted to do is, there's always two sides of that story, and there's always influence. The biggest thing is I got to watch someone through their actions, and that influenced me. And you influence others, and your people influence each other. And to bring this full circle, your core values of your business is how you hire people. And if you hire the right people, they will influence each other to be better than they are individually. And I was blessed to grow up watching a man, even though he was not a strong communicator, he was not a teacher, he was not the coach who sat down and said, here's why you do it, here's how you do it. He was the guy who said, get out of the way, you're doing it too slow. I come from a hunting family, and I think just in the last 3 years, I learned how to field dress an animal because I was too slow as a kid. Get out of the way. So if you are not hiring within your business, utilizing core values, then you are hiring people with completely different mentalities, and they influence each other. And that will either pull them down or lift them up. The last thing I want to speak to is the hope. If you have a positive attitude, if you experience positivity, I was blessed to experience that positive attitude, which you guys see me, I'm high energy, and that's just how I'm ingrained, but it's a choice because I have seen that through an example in my life, and I'm blessed to have a father, but you don't have to be a father to be a father figure. If you're not familiar with Lance Bell in this room, he has chosen to be a father figure for how many people now? How many people have you adopted? Raised 8 young ladies. And how many of them are biological? 2. He chose to be a father figure. Each of you in this room, mother or father, or if you don't have children, you are influencing people because you have a life others want to live, and that will motivate them. So my story today is hope. I hope you guys get a little out of this. It wasn't going to be a long presentation because you have a lot more boardrooms left, and you have a lunch presentation, and then you have a dinner gala. But I can appreciate you hearing it because it was my first time ever speaking to it. It was my first time ever speaking on stage on this subject, and I could not figure out what I wanted to tell because I've only told a fraction of the story. But I can promise you that my goal is to return here next year and deliver the full story to all of you so you can understand the true power of influence and the true power you have over your children. And a lot of us, and I've spoke to a few people here today who think their children don't have drive that you have. But I can tell you, keep leading by the example that you are. And I'm going to end this with whatever your dream, have a great year.